What's up everyone, this is Cher talking, welcome back to my channel. Today's video will be doing a review for Byunei Romancing Festival, the stage banner. Well, this banner only have 3 limited styles and then you have chance of getting off banners. Off banners are better now, but it still brings to question the value. Are those 3 styles good enough to justify pulling on this banner? I'll try to answer your questions now, starting with Byunei. So here on rsrstb.com we can see 5 different versions of Byunei. One is a nest, then all the other versions are limited. The first one brought Aerodyne in the game, a 3DP AoE agility debuff attack that's still relevant, one of the best skills in the game. Then we got the second one, that is actually a farmer. Then we got the third one, Sinister of the Sky, that brings AoE dexterity debuff with the same cost, only 3 BP. This is the best version of Byunei so far, if you can inherit from the first one, so you can decide upon dexterity or agility buff. And now we have the last. I'll leave this to you. This version competes against the Sinister of the Sky, but also brings to question if you can inherit either skill from Sinister of the Sky or Lord of the Dragons. If you want AoE debuff, you still need to inherit. Well, let's compare the status. As you can see, we have terrible STR, you don't need it. The endurance is now a little inferior, not much difference. The dexterity doesn't matter, only for normal attacks, and this version does not need normal attack ever. Her agility is much better, as you see 98% is a huge improvement over any other version of Byunei. And her intelligence is 111, 5% higher than Sinister of the Sky. The will is 80% now, a little less, but it doesn't matter too much, it's still on good values. Love and charisma are improved in a way, but charisma from the Sinister of the Sky is still higher. Let's check the status of the character. Byunei has double arrows for intelligence and will, and the bonuses also goes for those 2 status. Her agility is already high enough, she doesn't need bonus, and you can kinda use her for farming, but she was not designed just for that. She's a boss specialist, and I'll get into that later. If you want agility, you can find in other versions of her, and this one will give you. Or if you don't have, you can use her S style too. The S style is limited given in some events, so that is that. Now, we'll be talking about the passives. The first one is Reinvigorate 1 Intelligence. When landing an attack, increases her intelligence and recovers 1 BP. Well, this is actually one of the best passives in the game, and someone got this as well, and was Witch's Daughter. She has this in Global, Reinvigorate 1 as well, and it's just better than just healing. The heal is always around 150 when a character has a buff and a heal. 1 BP allows characters to get access to better cycles, and I much prefer this. If you compare to the older version, we only had an intelligence buff when attacking, so it's an improvement. Then we have Institution 2 Intelligence. In the start of a turn, in every turn, she has 25% chance to enter an evasion stance and also buff her intelligence. Again, so the value is 15% just like Reinvigorate, so when she triggers this, she's buffing twice. The evasion stance also reminds me of a type of passive called Fleeting Beauty that could be found in characters like Rock Bouquet. Rock Bouquet has it in her summer style. As you can see, Untouchable Beauty Ackley, 25% chance to enter evasion stance, and heal. In her case, she is buffing. Ackley, depending on the situations, it may be better or not. But since she can heal with her skill number 1, I guess this is an improvement, so you get higher intelligence to debuff or do more damage. Bosses are having very high will so far, so you may need extra intelligence to land debuffs better. Then we have Fired Up 6. The only damage passive, increasing damage by 30%. Well, for our skills we have Windfall. This is a 0 BP spell with delay, so it will go after the enemy attacks, but it has double elements, Slash and Blunt for the power, and it will do a very small heal. Should be around 150, and that kinda helps in turns where she does not have BP available to use something better, and it's double element, so very good in my opinion. And then there is Heaven's Breeze. This is a spell that was found in the Howl. The Howl was used for some evasion strategies. Because of this, it debuffs 2 different status, agility and dexterity, with an attack that's actually powerful for itself. So many people just use it Heaven's Breeze with this version of Witch's Daughter because she gets 4 BP a turn and she can keep casting it more often. So if you wanted to evade in strategies where the enemy could use spells but also dexterity based attacks, this was one of the best options. You can still debuff both status with Byunei. If you have, like I said, her past styles, the first one has an agility debuff with 3 BP, 15% debuff as well, and her Wind Bloom that can debuff dexterity, but you need to choose one or another. Since the cost is 3 BP, you can use it every turn. What you get is a combined effort of a single target attack instead of AoE with bigger damage that debuffs both. Is it always better? No, guys, it's not always better because not all fights will have an enemy that use attack based on dexterity. So if you want to evade bosses with spell attacks, the dexterity buff is useless. But if the enemy had both attacks, this was really, really good. And she also has access to this now. With 4 BP a turn, it means that she can use it many times before she runs out of BP. And when she runs out, she just uses Windfall for good damage and heal. So it's a viable strategy when you want to evade. But a little more restricted since she has to debuff both things on the same time. And only single target, not AoE. Now let's talk about Trinity Summon, skill number 3 that was buffed in global and may be her selling point. For 90 BP but also 1 LP, that means that you can only use this 5 times on max if you don't die. You get AoE damage, slash and shadow with B power. Well, this is strong for itself. For the cost, they added the LP cost because of the bloated effects that you get. First, she gets Morale up extreme for 3 turns. This is the same description as they did for Barbara, and Barbara was tested out to be 50% increase in damage. So you get the same value but only for Byunei, of course, that lasts for 3 turns. Because it uses 90 BP, it means that if you want to use Trinity Summon again, you will be able to keep up the morale up, apply again, and the damage will be higher. And then we have 3 different debuffs together with this spell. Agility debuff, Dexterity debuff, and Intelligence debuff, all of them reaching as much as 15%. Agility and Dexterity are already found in versions of Byunei, like I said, Aerodyne, Agility, and Wind Bloom debuffs Dexterity. You don't have anything that debuffs Intelligence with Byunei, so you're just getting one extra effect. And let me tell you, with the way that things work, right now many bosses have a lot of agility right from the start, and then if she gets to trigger Institution 2 on turn 1, she will already have a higher accuracy to try to break through the enemy agility, and even will to debuff it right on turn 1. And then if she goes first, the next characters will be able to land their attacks. There's a lot of problems with recent bosses based on this. You have to buff yourself sometimes just to be able to land attacks. She may fix this going first, and she's only lacking one main physical status, that is STR. So if the enemy uses STR, you are just debuffing Dexterity, so only the accuracy part, but not the damage level. But it's easy to find STR debuffers. We have, well, Eagle Maul, that's pretty powerful. We also have Acupuncture Plus users with characters like Mariah. Acupuncture Plus is extremely valuable because it guarantees a debuff every time that you need. You can get it from her S style, for example. So the only status that she does not debuff can be found in many other options, while Intelligence debuffs are a little harder to find, or even Agility debuffs, to be said, with low cost. So what do you do after you cast Trinity Summon? You can use Windfall, for example, wait for turn 3 and use Trinity Summon again. That is a valid strategy. Or you can go for Inheritance, use Trinity Summon on turn 1, and then you use either Aerodyne or Wind Bloom, and then you wait till you have enough VP to use Trinity Summon again, and keep doing this. Remember, it's an AoE attack, so mostly to be used for AoE encounters, but I have to say that sometimes just debuffing one target will be good enough. This makes her so much better. And then you have to bring another Intelligence buffer, because I believe that will not be enough. If you really need Intelligence buff, you need to have a second caster, but for agility and dexterity, she can keep up by herself. I can tell you that, unless the enemy has very, very high status. So we do have a very interesting kit. If you need to go for a single target, you go with Heaven's Breeze. You may still need a secondary debuffer because it may not be enough since you have to skip some turns. With Trinity Sumo, you may still need another debuffer, but that's because, well, she needs a break from some turns. But it has damage, it has a lot of coverage, and it simply works. So, I highly recommend this Byunei as a character, but the banner is bad. I have to explain why when I review the other characters, and in order to reach max potential, this Byunei needs at least one of the Byunei 1 with Aerodyne or Byunei 3 with Windbloom. Without them, it reduces the power and utility, since she would just have to keep cycling Trinity Sumo, and she can only use this 5 times, or else she will be dead. Heaven's Breeze is amazing, but once again, sometimes it's not the best option because the enemy don't use dexterity-based attacks, or just use dexterity-based attacks and don't use agility-based attacks. So that's it. I think that Byunei is one of the best characters right now. With Inheritance, she will beat Witch's Daughter on this regard, but Witch's Daughter with Inheritance from the How is still one of the best characters in the game. I have to say, we don't consider Inheritance of Witch's Daughter in our tier list because it's actually not needed. She's just so good as she is, because she just can buff Intelligence twice, like Byunei. She can heal, she has Healing Breath, she can debuff Agility, she only lacks the AoE Dexterity debuff that makes Byunei such a unique character right now. And now she has even more options to debuff Dexterity. You don't need both, I have to say that once again. There are alternatives, like if you need Agility debuff, you can sometimes find it on a character like Howling Princess White Rose, that is useful many and many times. Now I'll open the tier list to show exactly where I'm going to place her in the front line of this version of Byunei, but she still requires Inheritance. Oh, and just so you know, in JP there is another version of Byunei, Summer Byunei even, and she has some healing capabilities, finally. Yeah, it's an AoE heal with BP battery capabilities as well, gives everyone plus 2 BP. The cost is higher on 11, but she gets back 2 BP as well. So it's something to be considered. She also gives attack enhancement and has a stronger AoE attack for farming, but still not exactly a farmer, a character for long fights. Now, if you plan on summoning for Byunei, something needs to be said. There is a future version of Matriarch, and she is a debuffer, and with 12 VP she can debuff all status from all enemies with a support spell. It does not do damage, and buff all status of all surviving allies by up to 25%. So if she goes first, she just debuffs everyone, so it's even easier to use Byunei, because Byunei does damage, they combo well together. Now we move on to the next character, that is Maximus. Villainy Is Fun. This character doesn't have any other style besides this one, so this is what you get. If you're happy, okay. If you're not, well, sadly you got him instead of Byunei. That's right. Maximus has a focus on intelligence and will. He has a very high will. 115%, bonuses for both status as you can see, double arrows for will instead of intelligence too. His agility is not that high, only 85% for recent mages, is kinda on the average. His endurance is 79, not as bad as some other mages, but nothing special. Now for passives we have Camouflage for intelligence. On the start of a round, he will enter himself a stealth chance that lasts for 4 turns and has large effect, so that means that he won't get attacked as much, and he also buffs his intelligence by 25%. Well, I don't like this passive too much because it just restricts him into farming usage. I would much prefer 15%, that would trigger every turn, but this is how he works. Then the second passive is Inhibitor 3, Intelligence and Will. On the start of a round, reduces all enemies' intelligence and will by 10%. Well, this is not so good in my opinion. There is Orluge, and Orluge does that for agility and will. If you are on a fight against many enemies in Ward Tower, for example, you want to decrease their agility so that they don't attack you and decrease the will so that you have higher chance to inflict status ailments. Well, our Lush provides that. I can tell you that this is not game changing or anything, but it does in fact help a little here and there. Whereas what this guy does is decrease intelligence. It makes no much sense to me since he is made for farming or this type of scenario. Then we have high battle tension, increasing damage by 20% and allowing him to start with 11 VP for some interesting cycles. First, we have Dark Pulse spell. This one is something you found before on Rock Bouquet. Rock Bouquet has this attack with her Perfector style from 1 year ago. Dark Pulse is good because of elemental coverage. Lightning and Shadow is a pretty unique combination. It's AoE with 3 BP, meaning that you can use this all the time. Well, okay, old attack, but pretty nice. So now for spell number 2, we have Water Blast Plus. For 7 VP you get a single target attack with S power 41 mod. Actually, this is not as bad, but we do have 8 PP attacks now with even triple S. But it does give something, Guard Down effect. This one will decrease the resistance of the enemy by 12%. So anyone that attacks after him is going to do more damage. Now for the last spell we have Shade Blitz. For 11 BP coast you got an AoE attack with fast property. That means that always goes first. And hits for lightning and shadow damage with 8 power. The mod is 29 on JP. The fast part was added in global, so made him much better. But there's 2 more things. The first one, he has a chance to decrease the enemy's will by 20%. So you can increase the damage output of the next character that will attack after Maximus if it uses spells. But then he just wants to decrease will of all surviving allies too. And makes no much sense since this skill is not so cheap to begin with. It kinda reminds me of Global X Emilia. We had Emilia, a character with something similar with her Global X style. But she debuffs 30% of the enemy's agility. I know, her intelligence is not so high anymore, she barely debuffs. She will also debuff agility from all your characters, but in her case it was only 10%. The attack is even stronger when you compare the damage output. It also has lightning. So I understand what they did, but since this character is being released now, after so many good banners, they could have just removed this and no one will complain. It's not exactly something made for balance, just maybe a bad joke. But now I have to make a terrible comparison, and it's with Joe. Well, Joe is still a double S character in the tier list. We may need to revise this later, because it's not easy to use Joe in the current meta. We are using forged weapons and they cannot have double elements. So she's now far behind. You can compare their intelligence, hers is lower, the agility is pretty similar. The only good fact about Joe now is that she will increase damage to the squad as well. But by herself she does not beat Maximus, and that's why he is kinda relevant if you need another farmer, but only if you need another farmer for the farm-toad elements. Also another thing is that Joe needed 2 styles to perform full AoE cycles. The first one and then the second, this one, to get El Nino. And he can do that with just 1 style. So even though it's a joke character, he got much better with this fast change in global. You can use him in a formation like Magia Fight. You can even use him together with Bertrand. Bertrand goes in the front line. He deals some part of the damage, and then Bertrand uses Frost Quake, Q, a wave, gets BP back. We need to talk about 2 other styles when comparing to Maximus. The first one is Eagle Maul, because she's a much better shadow damage dealer and will also offer utility in boss fights. If you have her, you are not missing out on Maximus. And another one is Creator, because Creator also has lightning attacks. Especially with this version, Creator can do Fiat Lux and then Fingertips. Those are lightning attacks. Creator is, well, not reliable, sometimes can break the cycle of some units, but even with that, I think that Creator is a better character. You can use also for confusion in stages like Ward Tower or challenges, and offers much more value than going for Maximus. I will even open the tier list to show where he's going to land, and it will be pretty close to the end here. because he can be compared to Mac, although he's easier to use, does not need inheritance, or he can be compared to Vassalt, where Vassalt also debuffs Will, and Vassalt single target, he is AoE, although Vassalt's much better for boss fights since he does not affect the Will from the party. But yeah, you can compare him too much to Joe, so he cannot stray away too much from this position. But with that said, I have to say that Maximus is easy to skip. What he brings is nothing special, he's just a coverage of different elements that is made for farming. There are characters that can cover many roles, and here I'm only talking about as a farmer. He just gets this double S grade as a farmer. As a boss character, he is terrible, and you should not even think about bringing him there. There are plenty of better options instead. Well, the last character is Ludwig, and there's only this version on JP. I do hope we get a Global X Ludwig in armor, because it's much cooler. And he's a sword user with Shadow Element. We can compare his status distribution with another sword user, Zosma, another hybrid one. He also got 100% to STR and 100% to intelligence. They also have the same focus. His endurance is average, will the same. But I am worried about his dexterity. 67% is pretty bad, and he can even miss on some encounters. His agility's not bad on 90%, and love and charisma are terrible. You can see that he has a focus on doing damage. For passes, we have Breath of Invigoration 1, when landing an attack recovers HP, while around 150, and also 1 BP. I just said something about Byunei passive being much better since she buffs a status and gets BP. He is replacing a status buff for a heal that is pretty weak. Then we have Hyper Robust Tension, increasing damage by 20% at all times, and when he's on full HP, damage increases by another 15%. Then High with Tension, granting him 20% at all times, and when attacking weak targets, he gets 15% more. So when everything is stacked, this guy gets 70% increase in damage. Is that good? Yes, but we are seeing plenty of characters with 60%, so just a little extra, but requires him to be on full HP and landing weak attacks. The first spell is Dark Spread. For 4 BP we get an AoE attack that deals shadow damage with deep power and 12 mod. This is not as bad, it's just similar to some flash from Urpina, for example, with one added effect: it has a medium chance to inflict stun. I guess we can compare this attack to something like Shira. Shira has higher intelligence and she does have medium chance to stun, but on a fast attack, but after that she can only stun single target. So he at least has an AoE, right, with lower chance, but he just cannot compete with Matcha. She's a much better stun inflictor because she buffs her intelligence with Energize and can buff even more with Matcha's Benison. And her spell is 3 BP only. Even if it says low chance, it has a better chance to inflict with double elements. So if you have Matcha, there's zero reason to use this stun with Ludwig. Now for skill number 2, we have Victim's Word, a pretty unique attack. It goes for single target slash and shadow damage with B power and 21 mod, and after he attacks, he cuts 10% HP of all other surviving allies. Guys, yeah, just because he's a violin, someone thought this was a good idea. Then he changes with Shadow Bolt Plus. That is an attack, that is a spell, so you need the sword with the shadow element, with C power, and it has a chance to inflict stun. Medium chance, so maybe if you are using it against someone that is always stunned and you don't care about HP, but still, if you say about the damage part, you get double S power with only 5 BP. And he gets 5 BP when he uses this attack, 3 BP by third and 1 BP by Victim's Word itself, and another BP by Shadow Bolt Plus. So he can use this as much as he wants. But I guess they lost an opportunity here. He does not buff his own STR. This will make him much better. He instead recovers HP because he wants to stay on full HP all the time. He will recover 2 times as well. So something similar to Alarm from Katarina. UDX style. We can talk about it by going here, She also recovers HP and BP when she attacks, and Alarm costs 7. So in her case, she eventually runs out of BP, but she does not hurt the party. That is a difference. And by not having an SDR buff to increase the damage further and further to keep doing this strategy, makes him a high-risk character with a low payoff. Characters that buff themselves will eventually do more and more damage and eventually beat Ludwig in this instead of hurting the party. So the hold value is questionable. Now the last attack is Disaster's Word. For 10 BP we have an AoE attack that deals both slash and shadow damage, but it also has something. It cuts 20% now of the max HP of all other surviving allies. So in farming scenarios you don't care because they are just going to finish the waves without being attacked most of the time. But in other scenarios it's even higher cut than Victim's Word. So be careful when using this. If you are using him for farming and he's going to attack every turn, you'll be able to use Disaster's Word and then Dark Spread twice, meaning that at least the shadow part will be on full cycle, but the slash... This means that at least the shadow part will be on full cycle, but the slash one will not. But well, some may argue that either Victim's Word or Disaster's Word can be used to trigger some other character's passive that increase their damage when they are not on full HP. Well, we do have some characters. One good example is Aldora, because we have Decisive Battle. When she is not on full HP, her damage increases by 10%. But is it that much of an increase? I wonder. There is also other character like Rook, and Rook will also get more damage when he's not on full HP, as you can see it by this one. But again, in this case at least it's 20%. Is it that much better? You are just building a party that needs to reflect the HP decrease in order to work. But I can also say that he will break many characters that need full HP to do more damage. So you have like 5 characters that can benefit of this and 30 characters that would just hurt from this type of strategy. So it's strange. I think that it is just a way to try to balance his power, although his power is not that high to begin with. But he does work well as a farmer, because when you are farming you don't care if everyone is getting hit. Doesn't matter. And he will do very strong damage with 70% increase in passives. It's very high. And he will do more damage than Urpina, for example. Dark Spread is only shadow, so there is a problem here. And also when you are using Victim's Word, you open with slash and shadow, but then the follow-up is only shadow. So even when I was saying it's double S power, you hardly hit weaknesses when the enemy is only weak to shadow. But at least one place where I know Ludwig will work well is raids, because you don't want to survive too much on raids. After you reach the damage they are sold, you already get all treasure chests. It's usually 600,000. With Victim's Word, he's going to cut the HP of your party so that they die faster. There is at least this type of usage. But still, I cannot say that this character is totally bad. He serves his purpose when farming, and many characters have high placements on the tier list for farming setups. That's where you're going to use him. And he will also be placed close to this part of the tier list where I'm gonna place Maximus too. So they are on the bottom of the double S tier, just cannot get so low because of power and high status. Besides that, the design is not good, and that's the only reason why he was going to receive a very low double S grade. So now back to the banner image. Is this banner worth summoning for? Well, hardly. Byunei is a top tier character. Because of the new buffs she got, she beats even the current version, but still requires inheritance. But I have to say that the current Byunei will still be able to clear content that this one can. This one is just a straight upgrade. But Maximus and Ludwig are characters that are lackluster. They may serve as farmers, but I have to say many other characters can offer much more than this. They can also be used in boss fights, while also good on farming. These ones are strictly made for farming, and I have to say that in not much time they will be demoted to S tier and beyond. Just having status and passives will not keep you relevant. In this game, even characters with low status will sometimes prove to stay more useful within the passage of time. So, this banner will receive a bronze award because of these two characters, while Byunei shines, but this banner may still cost you 45,000 just for this Byunei alone. And some people may prefer off-banner styles in Maximus or Ludwig because they just don't offer enough. With that said, this is my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comments. Are you planning to summon? What do you think about these characters? If you want to support the channel, there are links in the description of the video. I hope to see you soon in the next one. Bye.